Hello, cousins. Welcome to Sass, our spirituality and support symposium. Think morning witchy chats around a warm campfire. The recording is started, and by participating in Sass, you agree to read and accept the terms of engagement, which I'll post in the chat. We ask that you mute during the recording for clarity during the meeting and for the afterplay. We will now get started with a few announcements. Really, the only announcement I can think of is that we have the familiar workshop directly after this Sass Mass. So there's still tickets available. It's going to be a good one, so drop in if you can. And then on May 5th, we'll also be having a chat about the upcoming convergence, the in-person one in September. That'll be the 27th through the 30th of September. So if you have any questions or if you just want to hear a bunch of witches reminisce about their weird stories together, then please come hang out. And then in June 15th through the 17th, is that accurate? I don't have the dates in front of me. I'm so proud of myself. Um, and we'll be having the Rituals and Revelry staycation retreat that time. So if you want to do like a summer hangout where you get kind of like an open window to the Alaskan wilderness and you get to learn a bunch of witchy things around the summer solstice, totally check that out on the website. And I think, oh, that's it. Okay, go ahead, Jen Marie. You take it away. Thank you.
Of course, I have something like I don't know, like a dog hair in my mouth alone. It's like in my everything right now. By show of like hearts, does anyone want to do like a quick grounding and centering, like a 3 breath collective coming together ish? Does anyone? All right. If you don't have to participate if you don't want to. Uh, but we are heading into like a really fast currents. A lot of our like lives are starting to really pick up, and I'm feeling this like urge, I don't know how to explain it, calling to take advantage of these spaces when we're sitting together to just like breathe together and be witches about it and be more intentional about the time that we are able to like hang out sincerely like this. So if you're down and you want to participate, let's just take 3 deep breaths together and focus your attention on the physical sensation of your breath. And for those of you in the guild, do that and uh, linger your attention on the end of your breath in that quiet, still space. And then be intentional about breathing. Okay. And breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. My attention, I guess, or inclination or whatever is to really highlight the importance of like having spaces like this, creating sanctuaries for ourselves. Um, the system of a witch is different, right? Our sensory load is often greater. Like it's high because our clairs are all turned up in all these weird ways all the time. And under the or through the lens of capitalism and the patriarchy, we're not given like permission to pause and to bring our attention to these more present moments and being really intentional about that. And so as we're making this big collective shift with which I know all of y'all are feeling, this big underlying shift that's happening, this global economic whatever, right? Change is happening and change is coming. And it's important for magical practitioners to just stay as grounded and present as possible and to remember what is real and what is a like social agreement, what is an agreement, right? And the I don't think I can put to words the value of spaces like this that we can just share our authentic lived experience. We don't have to mask. We don't have to be perfect. There aren't any expectations about, how we engage with our like emotions and things like that amongst each other. And I think that that is important to sit in that energy regularly. So thank you everyone that comes to the morning lives and when we're doing and Sass as well. Your energy and attention add to what it is that we're creating here. And what we create here is this sanctuary. And I think that it's important for you guys to recognize that you are a part of that creation. Your thread is a part of this, like the tent, the sanctuary that we're building. So thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for trusting us and being vulnerable and sincere in a world that we have been punished for that. I recognize how much trust is involved in what we've got going on here. So you're amazing. You guys are awesome. And we're doing great things. We really are. And we means you too. You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. On that note, if this is your first Sass, we are just starting the conversation. And at any point, you can do what Support just did, what Ocean just did in raising their hand. And you can change topics. You can weigh in on topics. And you don't have to be on camera. You can change, you don't have to be on camera. There's no expectation there. And it is scary the first few times that you share in Sass, but I promise we will be gentle with you and supportive. Go ahead, Ocean.
I wanted to share my dream, if that's okay. And put that up for interpretation. I had a really vivid dream, not last night, but the night before. Um, so I just wanted to share that. I actually wrote it down. I was sharing about it in the live this morning. I forgot some of the details, but or no, it was after the live. Sometimes we stay for a minute or two and chat, and I took up that time sharing my dream, but uh I really wanted to get into an interpretation of it, and I realized I should just bring it to Sass. That just made the most sense to me. So um here it goes. I had a dream where there were virtual realities built by corporations. Like I saw McDonald's specifically. It was like how they used to have like play places, but it was like a virtual reality version of that. So you didn't even have to go to the restaurant in order to interact with the corporation, essentially. Um, so kids were living most of their lives in them. like at first they were just for playing, and then their education started being over those systems because it became like easier for them to be or to like easier to access. And it was like colonizing their brain on like an institutional level, like a college like level institutionalization from a young age, because it was just such a direct line to their experience of reality, because virtual reality will like it tricks your brain into thinking you're actually seeing that, and your brain doesn't know the difference between like virtual and actual reality when you're experiencing that. um so and I watched this trend grow for like 2 or 3 months, and uh like it becoming like the norm, and parents were like at first really worried about it, and then they were going to work more and more until eventually they turned into dust. And I believed that I wanted to change this world for the better for the children who were left behind. So uh I started a campaign. I'm pretty sure I started it with Ezra. This the beginning of the dream's always kind of blurry, but I remember there being like a bunch of people there, and I'm pretty sure Ezra was on like the tour with me. And we went on this whole campaign against like the fast food industry and corporations, and we went touring like all over the US. Um, and at the very end of the tour, there was like this like VIP organizers, activists, like party to like organize and share ideas and strategies and just to connect at this abolitionist like mansion. Um, who was like he was like this amalgamation of like characters from like shows or like real life for me. So like it was like oddly I couldn't recognize the person, but I knew him, like sort of feeling. So and Jen Marie was there. She was hanging out in the backyard, and she was like talking to people around the fire pit. She was doing her like witchy thing, like talking about magic and asking people questions and stuff. I was looking for some recreational drugs in my dream. And so I was looking around for somebody who might have like some weed or something. And I found one of my friends. Well, he was kind of one of my friends. It was like another like amalgamation of like a character and a person. Um, so I found him and I was like, hey, can I have some of that? And he was like, yeah, be careful. I'm having to monitor a lot of people who are like getting too high and not really like, like able to handle their weed. And he was like, I don't want to have to watch you too. And I was like, okay, cool. And at that time, we were in the garage of the mansion specifically. And there was a vintage radio on one of the things on like one of the tables, and it had a bunch of like giant cassette tapes. They looked like VHS tapes, but they were only like audio, and none of them were like recordings of like famous people or celebrities or like artists, like famous artists or anything like that. It was all like hometown sort of garage bands, or like artists like on their own, like this is just like like one of the people like singing, and you could tell they'd like signed it themselves, and it just had such a like family videos, but of like a whole community, essentially like family songs or whatever, like all the different people who had performed in that space, in that garage, if that makes sense. Oh, in my notes, I called it a library of like real musical moments. Yeah, that's accurate. So behind it on the wall was a lot of like white supremacist memorabilia. And there was even like a KKK like sign-in sheet. And I took a picture of it with my phone. I was like, that's interesting. And I took a picture of it. And my friend was like, hey, don't do that. Like, delete that. And he got upset with me. And I ran off before he could reach me. And I ended up running back over to Jen Marie in the backyard. Like, I ran back around the house and I told her what I did. And she, like, she started laughing and she was like, oh, that's so funny. Like, like, I can't believe you got away with that. And, she after that she asked me, "Have you been here before? Have you been to this mansion before?" And I realized that this was my mansion when she said that, and I was just playing out a scene with like a bunch of like characters that I had like made. And as I started realizing that it wasn't real, I started walking further away from the party. And the next thing I know, I'm alone in the yard. Like there was even a crowd, like even though there was a crowd there before, um, I turned around and at the mansion there was nobody, like in the backyard there was nobody. I was alone again. And at that point, for some reason, I was carrying around a bag of costumes and trying to find my friend again. But when I found him, he was still upset that I took that picture, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And I started running away from him. And I went back around to the back of the house, and I was dropping a bunch of costumes on the way, like trying to pick them up and like trying to hold on to them. And As I continued to run into the forest, and I had been in this forest before in the daytime, there was another dream that I had because I ran by a stream and I remember following that stream to the end where there's a waterfall. But this time I took a different path, and the forest, it was like dark and it was nighttime. And I was just running into the dark forest and it was just getting darker and blacker. And um, before I knew it, um, I was in total darkness. And then I came out of the darkness into the inside of the mansion. I didn't have a bag of costumes in hand anymore. And I realized I needed to use the bathroom. So I went looking for one. And I found there were like super accessible bathrooms. It was like a room full of like bathroom stalls, but they were like huge. And most of them were like just like they almost looked like a stall, but you walked into like a massage room with like a shower at the end of it. And outside each stall there were like bed tables almost that were like waterproof. So they like seemed like they could be used for like massage or for like accessible like showering or whatnot. And they each had a color to match each door. Um, So I skipped the first stall and I opened the second one, and there was a person getting a massage. So I shut it like super quietly. And then the third one had a disabled person sitting on a bed and showering. And I was like, "Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry." And I shut the door, and they're like, "It's okay, have a good day." Like they were like super nice about it. And then the fourth stall had someone helping somebody else with like something on their shoulder blades. And when I was analyzing this dream later, I was like, oh, they're helping them with their wings. They're helping them extend their wings. Like I don't know if you guys saw my picture on Facebook, but that's like a physical experience I'm having with my shoulder blades. Like it feels like my wings are like growing or extending. So I feel like this person was helping that person with that because they were like sitting backwards on a chair and like slumped over it, and the other person was like helping them with something. Um, and then I ran back to the first stall, which turned out to be the only one that actually had a toilet in it. And I was like, oh, good, I can pee now. And then I woke up because that's how my body is like, good morning, we have to pee. So that's my dream. So if anybody has any interpretations, I would super be open to that. Go for it, Ezra.
The part that stuck out to me again was the part where you're like running away with costumes into the forest, and you're like dropping the costumes, and then by the time you get back to the mansion, and having realized that it's yours and it's like you don't have them anymore, um, that kind of struck me as like a like um, all of the paraphernalia that you have that is like keeping you from being you, like the costumes being, you know, not you things, inherently. Um, that's what's going to like lead you to like abundance or to your, like I had mentioned before that I feel like you are the mansion. Like that's, your like I think houses are a extension of ourselves. Like even in reality, but especially in dreams, they're like, and so I think that kind of like there's like this word I wanted to use, but instead of costumes, but like never mind. Well, I guess I won't get to it, but it's some kind of mm, maybe I don't know. It's like a uniform or something, but there was like some like cool, almost like biblical word I wanted to use for it. But like that's all gonna fall away. And you're gonna do it like you're running away, like you're dropping them when you're running away. And so that like actually that fear is like useful. Um, and it's what's driving you further uh, in the direction of yourself being like your authentic self, being this like this mansion, like this, large spiritual presence. But that's what I got.
Thank you, Ezra. That totally resonates. Like, absolutely. Go ahead, Renee.
I was gonna say a lot of it sounds like pretty on the nose, straight up wish fulfillment dream stuff, like the way you wish. Well, I mean, not the beginning with the corporations, but more like the mansion again, like the way you wish things would be and people would interact. But the thing that's really thrown me for a loop is this Nazi memorabilia thing. Like, I don't like it. And part of the reason I don't like it, and not to take away from the dream though, is my nephew who just turned 21. Him and some of his buddies, they were on like a little road trip. They're like out in the middle of nowhere in Wisconsin, and of course they're high. And one of his buddies is like, "Hey, let's stop. There's a candy store." And they went in the candy store, and the like guy that ran it, he's like, "Hey, you want to see something?" And he opens like a back door, and like he had a room full of Nazi memorabilia. And so I'm like, what did you do? And my nephew is like 6'5". He's like, just like in a cartoon, he's like, look over there. And then he's like, and then I ran away. And then they all ran away, got in the car, drove off. But um, so I don't know, like that, just this whole notion, and I'm trying to apply this to your dream, but just this whole notion of that there's people like that hiding in plain sight really bothers me, like that people, like I told my nephew, I'm like, people need to stop worrying about drag queen story hour and start worrying about candy store Nazis, just this idea that, like a candy, like that's like having like Nazi memorabilia in like a toy store, you know what I mean? Like, um, just like lurking in the corners, but also, I don't know, Ocean, I hate it. I hate that you dreamt that. It's troubling to me, but I don't know what it means other than I'm sure you were repelled by it, but you're also trying to like take a picture of it. So you had like evidence kind of, because maybe it was one of those things where people wouldn't believe it unless they saw it, is kind of what I'm thinking. But that there's just a lot of that dream. Like I swear we could spend like 8 hours probably trying to unpack it, but that's the part that I mean, there's so much in it that seemed like it was, like I said, like the way you wish people would be, and like the way you wish things were available to people. But I don't, that's probably not helpful. And I am like, did not sleep last night. So I apologize if I'm rambling, but um, okay. I hope that, I hope that gave you something, Ocean. I'm going to mute.
Yes, absolutely. And also I saw that it's your birthday in the chat, so I'm gonna shout you out. Happy birthday,
Oh,
Renee.
thank you. I'm trying to unraise myself and mute myself. There you go.
You got it. You're awesome. No, that resonates so much, and I'm really glad you brought up the like white supremacy like stuff, because like um we've been talking in the lives actually even lately about how in order to unpack in order to like kind of like bring that more to light, it's a lot about shedding the light on the white supremacist that's baked into us, or at least for me. And so like um I think that the ways that people have been taught to interact with other people, and the ways that we have like mystified um these things, instead of like just pointing it out, like you said, like shedding light on it, like these people who are like hiding all that stuff and like making it like a like a secret or whatnot. It's when I call it out in my own actions or my own words, I find that it's easier for me to call it out in other people when I see it like out in the world. Um so I'm super glad you brought that up, because yeah, it did feel like me being like, I have evidence of this now. Like this, like especially that it was like a sign-in sheet of names. It was like it was almost like I'm taking names, like I'm like I'm here for to talk about it and to call it out. Uh totally go ahead, Renee.
Sorry, I don't mean to make this about me, but I was just going to say, like, when you talk about the kind of, white supremacists with inside of us, I feel like if there's one feeling of a past life I have, it it is that I am hate and I'm absolutely terrified of Nazis in any way, shape, or form. I can't read a book. I can't, I haven't watched any of those movies. It freaks me out on a level that is like nothing else. Like um yeah, so I mean, like I said, I feel like if I ever had like a past experience, past life experience that bubbles up in the real world, it's definitely negative encounters with Nazis. And so yeah, so in my present life, I really I'm not a fan. I mean, I don't want us to use all the curse words that the way I feel about it, but yeah, it's I just can't believe in my lifetime that it's happening. It's anyway, sorry, Ocean. But yeah, I think also like the taking names thing, it's like it's good to be aware, you know what I mean? Like if there's someone that's so on the opposite pole of how you operate and your moral compass, I think it's good to be like aware of those people, because you know, just to be safe, really. Okay, I'm gonna mute. Sorry.
I absolutely love your input, Renee. I think you have a lot of amazing things to say. And I totally agree that it's definitely part of my inner compass. And also I also find like Nazis to be scary. And when you said that, my brain was like, it's because they're real monsters. And the real monsters is really like complicity, is that a word? Compliance and like obedience and like ignorance and like the ways in which like conformity, those are like the true monsters. Um and also, oh my gosh, I could go down a whole rabbit hole with you guys. Like I've been kind of obsessed about why so many people become these like type of people who are like uh willfully or even unconsciously harmful. Like why did people like us become more aware than other people? And I'm not saying we're different. Like I was like such a evangelical patriot, honestly, as a child. And I was like always wearing like the American flag, and I was super stoked to go to church. And like I was on that path. I was very close to like falling, probably like there's probably another version of me out there that's like like a crunchy new age spiritualist with no awareness whatsoever. Like, so I totally understand why that's scary. Like that's super real. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Um, to stay with that whole, Nazi stuff in the garage. Sorry about my dog. It's a spring day here, and he's forgotten that there's people that live in this neighborhood. Hang on a second. Cooper! Oh my goodness. All right. So I noticed that you said early on that when you first came up to the mansion, you said that it belonged to an abolitionist, which I found interesting that you then found the Nazi stuff in the garage, kind of under the hood, like put away in the back, and that you discovered it. And then it was really important to you to like take risks and to call that out, with the names, and to take the picture and to have the evidence, and then, take that risk and run away, even though you weren't supposed to be doing that. And that was just something that stood out to me. I don't know if that's helpful in any way, shape, or form, but I did notice that that line in there.
Thank you, Stephanie. Go ahead, Maria.
So the information in my brain that is being shared is, though it seems history repeating itself and those types of themes happening, is it, or is it that the stuff that is always there has always been there, never gone anywhere, now has like a light on it so we can see it more clearly? And that's just the vibe that I'm getting, and I thought I would share that and do with it what you would like.
Oh my gosh, that's been coming up for me a lot too, is that yes, it seems like it's coming back, but actually it's just the awareness of it is actually finally being brought forth. And awareness is the first step to change.
Yeah, like it feels it's like, no, like here it is, like there's a big bright spotlight on it now, so y'all can see it, like, so you know where it is, like you can call it out, you can proceed accordingly, like, but here, like here it all is, like this is here, yes. Verity.
Hey, what you just said, Maria, was totally what I was going on, except not only does it shed a light, but I was feeling that folks who feel that way feel emboldened within the last, I'd say, decade to express their feeling and share it, because the level of tolerance for political correct or for acceptance, it's not like you said, it's always been there, but now they feel emboldened to say, yeah, I agree with that. And trying to sway people over. It's just like that pendulum swung that way. And they all feel like, en masse, more protected with each other, I guess. So I think it's disgusting, but it is, at least we know who they are. So, all right. Isabel.
Okay, so just to spin it on a more positive note, what I got from, just like Renee said, there's a lot of symbolism in your dream ocean, but there was one thing that stuck out to me, and maybe because I hold you and Esther in such a beautiful space, but I thought that there's the fact that you thought about her in your dream is maybe parts of her that you identify, which you both have, that are to be very kind people, enlightened people, and out to help others. You're in a path that is opening we're all on a path, but maybe there's parts of both of you that connect in the way that, yeah, you're paving the way for other people, more your generation than mine, to, yeah, to lay the groundwork for others to heal and to follow through. I mean, I know that we're all there for the same thing, but I just thought that it was just so awesome that you both come up to me like super spiritual, beautiful people, and that's what stuck to me. And that's all I wanted to share.
I absolutely agree. I have definitely seen myself doing a lot of work with Ezra, with like, especially how we're like writing like the gender magic course, and I can't wait for that to come like out. And we've definitely had a lot of conversations about everything, like politics and interaction, connection, just like we've talked about so many things. And their energy really does feel aligned for me to like, for like us to like work together. And I like how was it Danny in the chat asked me about the meaning of a garage. And I totally agree that it is, for a lot of people, a storage place. However, garages, coming from my hometown in Bakersfield, garages, I associate them with like kickback spaces, essentially. I don't know if that's a word other people use, but like it's like not a party, it's a kickback. Like it's like a relaxed version of like hanging out, I guess. Was kind of like the idea. And like I had friends who would like have like garage bands at their house, or like have, you know, their own bands. And like, you know, you'd come to somebody's garage and coming out, go see the band in the backyard. There was like a fire pit or whatnot. And like, so garages were like a place to essentially see everybody else for who they were when they relaxed. Um, and uh like essentially, because we, you know, we were all like late teenagers, so we were all drinking and stuff a lot of the time in these spaces. And you would see somebody start, like it was just the very start of like how people presented when they lost their inhibitions, because that was something that a lot of us hadn't experienced in high school. We didn't have that like mechanism to escape yet. And so I really love that in correlation to like the white supremacist memorabilia, because I did grow up around a lot of people whose ideologies would have gone down that pipeline if I still knew them. Like they might, like, you know, there's probably a reason I still don't know them, but um yeah, that has a lot of deep meaning. But I'm gonna go ahead and let Maria go. Thank you.
Hello. Something in the chat, Taryn said just about the never ending battle, and totally not saying you like we're interpreting it in this way that I'm where I'm going with it. It just pinged me on something, that those words. And like I used to be very more in my younger years, like maybe I'd get into it, like be more like politically, or if I heard something, and I'm still that way. Kind of, it's just the way that I like approach things is a little bit different due to like shadow work, honestly. And I think for me, I think the problem is the really back to like what Jen Marie was saying in the very beginning, and that one of the reasons that things like keep perpetuating, just keep going, and the same shit different day, like with these big things that are like very hurtful to a lot of people, is that, and again, it is totally okay if you don't agree with me, but is perceived as it has to be a battle. Because if the wayward will rise, we will outnumber those people, and then therefore those of us who are doing the deconstruction, who like are, you know, who have great compassion for human and humankind, and, you know, can find 5,000 different solutions besides battling and besides war. And I really believe that we are getting there, even though it seems like we're not. Like, it's almost like a tower moment. It's a really fucking long tower moment that like, but that's just what I feel like when I feel like I feel that, and there's probably some information that hasn't, that like the way that my higher self and my guides talk to me, like that that we haven't talked about yet, about, you know, maybe things coming up or things that haven't been, information that hasn't been shared with me. I'm sure, because that always happens. But it's like, it's the battle, because that's always been, right? Like, we go to war, or there's a battle to solve something. The perception is you have to meet it like with that. And I think that's one of the big shift that's coming, is that, and however you want to call, but like when the wayward rise, it will no longer be that way. And the social conditioning is the thing. And I never say this is the way, but like that is the way, like, to deconstruct the social conditioning, because it's if you really think about it, it's all social conditioning that's deep, 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 generations deep, right? And the generational and the trauma and things like that. Anyhow, I won't say more because it will just be rambling. And if I look tired, it's because I am. I woke up early to be on an airplane. So I feel like, just if I look tired, that's why. All right, who is next? Let's see. It's like, how many times have I been on Zoom and I still don't know the buttons? Okay, Ocean.
Thank you. You're awesome. Don't worry, we all forget where the buttons are. It's totally normal. Uh yes, oh my gosh, everything you said just absolutely sparked me. And that, like, that battle is it's an internal experience that we're seeing externalized. And as more and more of us start to like it's funny how connection is like contagious. Like, you can't always talk to people about being like about magic or being a witch or stuff, but you can always talk to people about connection, and that makes sense to them. If you start talking to people about what you need, a lot of times they can relate to it because they usually need the same things, especially in like a society where a lot of us are like lacking. And it's it's kind of also a breakdown of us versus them. There really is no them, because like I don't want to say we are them, but like I want to say that like we experience, oh man, oh my gosh. Ezra just sent me a TikTok of Bashar this morning that was so relevant to this. It was like we experience the reality that uh we perceive to be um like like the safest, I guess I would say, to our nervous system. And because change doesn't feel safe to our nervous system, because what if it's something worse when we change? And so it takes that like care and compassion and like connection to like see like, I don't want to say sustainable change, because sustainable means that, you know, you have the same thing for a long time, but more like it's like a catalyst for that sparks a journey of change, a journey of changes. um that's all I got. Go ahead, Ezra.
yeah, like I was thinking about that video too, but like and um oh man, I'm sorry. I kept, like when you were talking about it, my brain kept on saying like, by George, I think they've got it. Like like, they just like keep saying it over and over again. But anyway, like, but yes, like that, the idea that you, even if it seems counterintuitive, like um, if you keep on making a choice to do something over and over again, it's basically because you perceive that to be the safest result. Um, even if you're still being harmed by it, um, like if you're stuck in like a loop of addiction or something like that, like it's safer for you to keep doing that than to stop doing that. Um, and so that's why you keep doing it. And it's like basically the moment that you start, deconstructing and unpacking why you're doing that and the limiting belief behind, why you think that's safer, it makes it easier to drop it. And then the more you do that, the more your brain believes you the next time that you say like, oh, I can change and it'll be safe. And so it becomes a little bit easier. But okay, so I actually wanted to say something about the garage for a second, because that was coming up for me. Like for the meaning of garages, and like someone said something about a vintage car, about that's where you put, oh, I think Renee said that, but that's where you put the vintage car that no one drives. And that was my first association with the garage too. And it made me think about car culture and how much space cars have like usurped from us over time, like systematically taken away walkable cities on purpose, in order to sell us more cars. And they actually also were one of the first things that demonized homelessness, because rich people at some point were the only people that had cars, and they started driving down roads that were previously walking roads, and they would kill people. And in order to get people, make that stop happening, they started demonizing people that were walking where they were supposed to walk, and uh, calling them like homeless people. And that's where the whole term jaywalking comes from, because a jay used to be what they would call a homeless person. And so by this idea of like this like larger entity of the car making already rich people feel like bigger, like bullying smaller walking poor people essentially, is very in line with like the whole like what Nazis are, you know? Um, and the I also saw this like political comic that was like the space we've surrendered to cars. And basically it had, like a building and a sidewalk, just a narrow strip of sidewalk. And then it just, instead of a road, it just like dropped off into nothing. Like, and it was just, so much space that we've given to cars and car culture and corporations, and like Ford, who was like a Nazi himself, and created the assembly lines, which systematically dehumanized the workplace, and made people not have like trade skills, and instead they just were like a cog in a machine for the quicker production, for profiting the person at the top type of thing. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that. But that this whole like anti-car culture monologue just like had to say something about that.
Thank you, Ezra. Am I the only one with, are there any other hands? Okay. when someone said something earlier about something, it kind of like, it made me think about, like I've been doing this shadow work, right? Like pretty intensely for like 2.5 years, and, therapy before that. And I would say like I've grown, whatever that means, a lot. But I still have like a lot of anxiety, and now my vacation just had like major anxiety. And what it just was making me think of, it's like, as much as like the world has experienced, I don't really evolved. I know people like use that word. That doesn't seem like right anymore. But experienced. And it's like, so I was like thinking about that, like for myself, like as much as I have all this knowledge that I feel from like deconstructing it about myself, and that I still like, because I had a belief at one time that if I like did all of this, that I wouldn't experience like anxiety anymore. And that isn't true, because I'm still, as I experience both. The way I the things that happen are different. The information that my system shares, or how I interact with the anxiety, is different. But so like I was kind of using almost that as like a metaphor for like what someone said like goes on in the world, like like we have like all this information and all this, and yet it still feels like that feeling of like history repeating itself, even though, and we talked about that, it's it being like always there and just kind of being highlighted, like um so it's like a choice, right? Like it's kind of like that free will, and that like some people might say like that's the ego, self, to like want to keep me safe, right? Like, and I know like a lot of my anxiety is like, it is like keeping me safe, or try my system telling me, because of years and years and years of feeling not safe. And just different things. So it's just got me thinking. It's got me down that rabbit hole. So I thought that was interesting. Um, and even though like, just free will, and there's like the people that step up and want power and control, and the people that follow them, and again, I feel is just all, wanting to belong, wanting to be a part of something, not wanting to be outcast. And it all comes back to like the deconstruction, stuff. Like if that was talked about more, if that was shared more, if it, because that people want it, you can see the people that message the page, right? Like if you're ever on our public spaces, like the kinds of questions people ask, like people are just so deeply looking for answers. And just the other thing that, and that, and I am kind of tired. So my brain, and I have, I'm like on the ADHD spectrum. So I got 500,000 thoughts at all times. But um, it was like, if we live, like I often like just step back and think about like how this timeline, this experience that we're on is over in like a blip, and so like that's, I think, the thing that sometimes helps me the most is like when I step back and think like, and I know maybe it sounds cliche, but I do often just think like, if tomorrow was my last day, like would I really have anxiety about this? No. And that just helps me to like reframe it. I don't know, I feel like I feel like I was very connected to the conversation, even though I went in a little bit of a different area. So I just wanted to just share that's what I was thinking about. Um and as far as warfare, there's a version of me that is like a warrior, like presents like Xena warrior princess, if you need like an image type of deal. And it is more of an energetic thing. And I don't quite have like all the information, or have dedicated time to interact with that version. But it was a time where like I felt I maybe wanted like a protection, and she showed up. So that's really interesting, like to think about what happens on other timelines and other realms and things of that nature. But yeah, it just kind of felt highlighted to say, like, people get, really riled up about certain things. Maybe that's like that, I don't know, immortality, like, trying to do something that will last or something, because it really is all like a blip to me. Thank you, Ocean.
Yeah, that helped me a lot. I've been through, I'm still working on my relationship with death, but one thing I have found through that slow process, is that, oh my gosh, Taryn, I love that you brought that up. Oh, that's so aligned. So I like to think of things similarly. Like that's how I usually get out of my, like, how I interact with my FOMO is I'm like, I won't die if I don't get to go, or I won't die if I do this thing, like get my blood drawn. I'm very scared of needles. Or, stuff like that, is that I'm like, I do kind of compare it to my mortality, or like even getting rejected sometimes for, like, things I want to do, or uh stuff. So um yes, and then you said something else that I wanted to. Oh yes. Oh no, it was Taryn. Yes, the reincarnation. Sorry, I know. I'm all over the place. The ADHD is in the house today. Um, Reincarnation is something I think about a lot. I think that part of me thinks that I guess what I want to say is where I'm at so far, because I don't think I know everything. And I think I actually know less the more that I learn. Um, but what I believe is that so far that there is a, like, the like, it's often referred to as the Akashic records. And I feel like that's almost like this amalgamation of, like, the information gathered over lifetimes by the collective. Um, and I feel like I feel like we all have access to it. I think some of us connect with it more naturally. I think channeling is a sort of connection, like, with that collective information. And so I think that I believe that I can essentially, whenever I'm being shown what I used to believe to be a past life, it feels more like um this is a reflection of the life path that you're currently on. And there's something in either the feeling signature, the imagery, or however my guides are trying to connect with me with that moment, that is like relevant to my current journey. Because I've started trying to think of things as what am I experiencing? Like, I dissect the experience, and then I go, how can it apply to my current practice? Because if I just let myself spiral about, this is my past life, and what does that mean, and who did I used to be, it feels like a distraction from what I'm currently participating in. Go ahead, Taryn.
Well, I had recently had an experience about this myself, and was, kind of having a conversation with my guides about, reincarnation and what it actually means, because I've always had this sense of it, but I've never really explored it. And I'm going to be 60 this year, and I'm just now exploring things. And a lot of that has to do with, you guys sharing, and I'm getting off track right now, but I'll get back to that. But anyways, so in this, I pace and speak out loud and have that's how I communicate. I didn't realize that that's what I was doing all these years. But anyways, it was like the purpose of reincarnation was kind of the question, I guess, and like, you know, how many times, or is there a limit kind of to how many times we are reincarnated? And the message or the answer that came back to me was until we're all purified. And the meaning for that meaning to me was that like we have healing to do. And so each life we are experiencing things to bring about that healing, and we just kind of keep recycling sort of that energy until we purify that energy. Does that make sense? Hopefully I'm saying that right. But so when you were talking about that and the significance too with the Nazis, perhaps there's something that occurred in one of your past lives that you need to fix, or not fix, but heal from. So the purpose of this life is to heal that one. Kind of. Does that make sense? That's all I got.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Ezra.
I love the that you brought up past lives, Taryn. I think when I hear the word purify, what my head goes to is essentially like um going back home, like to source, and like kind of the ball of light and like the center of the atom of the universe type of thing. Like that's what my uh like all roads lead back there type of thing. Um and when I think of past lives, I'm also kind of operating from the perspective of like the only thing that makes it past is our human perspective, like us being like in this like linear perspective. And really it's everything is happening now um in the universe. And it's and if that's the case, then it's not so much that it's like a past life, although it's totally fine to still call it that, like we're still in our human perspective, so there's no reason to like convolute it if that resonates with you. But like what I really like to think about is like, why do I resonate with that, with whatever information I'm getting from that past life, from that memory that I've been given, like because what it's telling me is that that part of me has a similar frequency, at least that I have that I have an opportunity to tap into that frequency. That's why you hear so many people say that like they were Cleopatra in a past life, or like specifically, or like just specific famous figures. And it's not that I think it's perfectly possible for multiple people to have been this, in that past life. Because to me, that just means that they resonate with whatever frequency Cleopatra was on. In some instance, who knows exactly why. And so I think looking into like the way that you would like heal that or let it kind of like drive you closer to source, or into, into your higher self, would be to look like, I know some people like think that they were bad people in a past life. Like, I mean, not that I think like Cleopatra was like a saint or something, but like, they specifically have like this idea that like I was bad in a past life, therefore, this life, I'm doing this to make up for it. And I think that we can use that as an opportunity to see, what is still resonating from that memory, or that whatever the experience is that we are looking back and saying that's my past life. What is it about that that I still relate to today? Like, why am I even thinking about it? Like, why is it coming up? And that can be like a little catalyst for shadow work, no matter what. If you want it to be, like, if that's coming up for you, then it's clearly a way, like, it's giving you a clue about your brain. Like, anything you're thinking is giving you a clue about your brain. If that makes sense. But yeah, I think that was the end of my thought train. Let's see. Yeah, me too. I just wanted to say this, that's the same way in the chat. That's Ocean, I think, saying that's the same way I connect with gods and goddesses, by connecting to the frequency that they are the archetype for. Yeah, me too. Let's see. Maria is next. Go, Maria.
Thank you. Yeah, and same, I work like with deities in that same way. What I was wanting to share is when I was a young witch, even though I didn't call myself a witch back then, but when I started my divination practice, I believed in reincarnation, and I would do past life regression meditations and different things like that. But now, and I don't know what rabbit holes y'all have gone down, but I don't see past lives or time as linear. I mean, I don't even really believe in time, but that's like a whole, thing. I work within the construct of time so I can be with my fellow humans, but I don't really believe in time or time. So like our experiences, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, from what I just sharing what I believe at this point from the information that I have been researching, or listening to others that I resonate with, is that time's not linear. And so you could be potentially experiencing multiple versions of yourself all now, like we're here, but other versions going on now in other spaces, whatever you want to call that, timelines, other realms, whatever. So that's like an interesting rabbit hole to go on. And I'm going to say something that might feel a little bit pokey. And I was like, should you say it? Should you not say it? Should you say it? Should you not say it? So I'm going to say it. If you believe in reincarnation, and when we talk about those people that we, have, like the Nazis, like, was I Nazi in a previous, version? Like, I don't know, right? And like, what does that mean? I do not believe anything I do not believe in anything that they believe in, like, not at all. But it's like that possibility of like, in my human experience, in this experience, I don't know all of the experiences I've had. And then, yeah, Ocean, I have that same fear. And like, when I said it, it didn't even sound like a fear. Like, I'm fearful of, my fear is how you will react hearing that. and because I don't want to make anybody feel bad, and I don't want to, you know, set like so if anyone's having like feelings about me saying that, certainly let's talk, you know, more about it here. But that's just what I thought of. Like, if, you know, like, so if we're talking about reincarnation and we're getting into that, and we talk about all these atrocities, you know, that have happened since the beginning of time as we know it, like, what side were we on, you know? And if Earth is a school, and we're, you know, here to just kind of learn, and believe me, there are so many times that I'm like, what the fuck? Like, like, why? Like, why do we have to go through this? You know, the hurt, the painful things that have happened. And I honestly, yeah, it's just a question mark for now. But like, thinking about that and kind of thinking about, okay, do I believe that I exist in other versions other than myself? Yes. Do I believe, you know, in kind of that idea of reincarnation? Yes. Maybe not in the way that I once did, you know, keeping in mind that it, like, because I don't think time is linear, all these things happen like consecutively. And then kind of like loving all those versions of myself, and that just feels highlighted, and that like seems important, of like, you know, as you get more into deconstruction and that kind of idea of the versions of you and kind of loving them, is like a rabbit hole to kind of go down to, or that I go down. Renee.
Uh, I hit a button and I totally zapped out of Zoom, so I apologize. Um, I'm gonna say I agree with Maria, and time is just a big ball of yarn, and or a couple of balls of yarn put together. It's not. I mean, I don't think it's linear either, and like she mentioned, it's like a huge, crazy conversation. That would be super fun to get into sometime. Also, like, I'm really into alternate dimensions and like pocket universes. Like, pocket universes are one of my little pet loves that I have. But what I was going to ask, which is a little bit of a change of subject, yes, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. So before, I'd never heard the term like channeling before. I kind of started hanging out with everybody here. And in the same way, I had questions and was curious about when people talked about their guides. Very curious what people, if they would share what they mean when they say they're channeling, like what that experience is. Because in my mind, I think I have like a definition of it, but I'd actually like to hear it from people that are active working with it. So because I have like experiences, I don't know if that's channeling. I don't know. I'm just kind of curious how people here break it down. So that's my question.
Yeah. Ezra, I think, Ezra, did you want to weigh in on before? And then I have a weigh in for Renee.
So you can go ahead. And also, could you repeat the question? I like missed the very end of what what Renee said, and I really want to know.
Oh, me? I was just saying I'm very curious when people use the term channeling, like what you're experiencing, what the how you would describe that. In the same way, like I was curious when people said, when they talk about their guides, like I'm trying to kind of just get a handle on the term channeling.
Yeah, thank you. I thought that's what you were asking. I'll let Maria go first, but I do want to weigh in. I'm excited to talk about this.
It's a great question. And I feel like this is one of those things where like you'll find people out on like the clock app or other spaces that maybe have really, like definitions. I feel like this is one of those things for me that we can share our like experiences about all of this, like channeling and how we experience the you know, what we can't see. That everyone, it is like just like personal to like everyone. Like even like the clairs, when we talk about like the clairs and they get described, but even within like clairaudience, like clear hearing, like it's your version of what that is. So to me, it's like whatever kind of your version is. When I say I'm channeling, I am receiving information from something that's not myself. And I realize that a lot of times when I'm channeling my higher self as well, which I never like identified before because, yes, just because. So, and sometimes I'm channeling my higher self. So it's like getting that information that I couldn't have known, maybe otherwise. Or it's like a guidance like system. Like what's the difference between like intuition and channeling? I mean, I think sometimes the lines are blurry, right? And I like stopped trying to figure that out so much. Like I love the question and I do love thinking about it, but it's all like guidance, right? Like to me, it's all like an internal um guidance system. And so like sometimes the information that I hear may be in a different voice, like when Isis, like in Kuan Yin, like information and basically like that vibe of like deity is like a kind of like a motherly, but just like very supportive, like supporting the practice of witchcraft and this like kind of journey. So it's just like a supportive energy, and that's kind of how I interact. But the energy signature is different. So it's just like feeling into like, where is it kind of coming from? So that's how I kind of do it. But it's basically just like receiving information. And I'm very much like hearing the clairaudient is like I'll say like my dominant, but it's just the one I use the most. It's the one that just kind of came easiest maybe. And but I do experience things with like all of my senses. So it's just like for me, channeling is however I'm getting information um that's not necessarily coming from my own thoughts, but like my own thoughts are part of it. So it's I feel like the lines are really blurry for me, but I'm like feel like it makes sense for me. In terms of like, is it this or that or who's talking? Like I when I'm getting information, I know when I'm getting them from a familiar, and then if I'm not getting it from a familiar, I know. Um, and then yeah, I'll stop there. I was gonna go into more of like mediumship, but let me pass it over to Ezra.
Oh, yeah, great answer. Sorry, I yawned right when I unmuted. Um, so I love this question because like it took me like a year after joining Bright and Dark to realize that I was channeling and that that's what I was doing, and so it's definitely something that you you're gonna like somebody else, I think in the Facebook group kind of just went, oh, this is channeling, I've been doing it, got it, like the other day. And that tends to be like an aha moment at some point if it's interesting to you, because it's probably something you've been doing by accident all your life. If you are a channeler, if you resonate with that, I like, for me, I experienced a couple different things that helped me understand what channeling was better. And one is thinking of it as like radio waves. And the other is thinking of it as like, like a water channel. So whatever metaphor like works better for you and your brain. But like it's like a stream of consciousness that you tap into. And then as you continue to grow your relationship with channeling, and you basically just kind of like open a stream of consciousness or a channel between you and whatever you would like to have a conversation with. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. And then like you can get information from a crystal by holding a crystal in your hand, like, and kind of channeling the I believe that all objects that are physical have a spiritual connotation of some kind. Like, I mean, you don't even, crystals are, very powerful, because we have like a long history of intention and connotation and associations that, entire lineages of people have come to associate with. Same thing with herbs, with that crystal. But you could like conceivably, like in my view, like channel a paperback if you wanted to. Like every single thing in this world has a frequency of some kind. I don't know what you would get from the paper bag. Now I kind of want to know. But what we usually, when we think of channeling, we think of people like Bashar, or mediums that are channeling like somebody who has passed or something like that. Although mediums don't have to be that. That's something that I had to realize too, is that because I actually consider myself something of a medium, but I don't like specialize specifically in talking to like dead people. And so we end up tapping into a stream of consciousness. Like I do this with people that I'm like talking to, just like in front of me, like whenever if you ever had a situation in which you kind of like have almost like a telepathic or even a explicitly telepathic connection with somebody else, and you're just like, oh, I know exactly what this person is thinking right now, like I heard that before they said it. Like, to me, I would interpret that as you channeling that person. You have mentally, create or even energetically created a stream of consciousness between you two that I would consider a channel. And in the radio like analogy, like I think basically the way that I see it is that because we all have a frequency, and the entire world is made of frequency, or the entire universe, I mean, is made of frequency. We can act as like our brain as radios, and we have a lot of static in there. Like we're not very like tuned usually, because we have a lot of people when we are young, like influencing what our frequency, like basically like knocking our dial back and forth, and like or our antenna or something like that. And when we settle our nervous system and we start to learn to like ask permission from the world that we're living in to interact with it, that signal gets a little bit more clear. And I think some people have very specific like radio channels that they can tap into. And that's like, in the case of Bashar, he's got that one pretty much as far as we know. Like, I don't know if he channels anybody else, but he's just like I know that radio station so well that I'm getting like extremely specific information from this person, even to the point where like the inflection changes. And I've even seen a couple of other, like there's been at least one other person, like on lives who is speaking to, who is channeling on lives, and he's like a much younger Black man, and then all of a sudden he will start talking like Bashar. Like his inflection will completely change, and suddenly he sounds like what I have come to associate with this like older white man, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, wow, that's like very it's very specific. It's a very clear signal, right? But in general too, like a lot of times, like for me, I don't experience it that specifically. I'm a lot more flexible. That's just like, I don't know if it's like an ADHD thing, or a Gemini thing or whatever it is. Like it feels like my antenna is very adjustable. And but I also don't get signals like quite that clearly either. Like I don't like, they don't just like jump in as a whole like person that's conversing like in that way most of the time. And I experience and it took me a long time to realize that that's what I was experiencing. And then once I realized it, that even just realizing it tuned that connection in like so much more than it was before, because it felt like I was just like I was hearing a lot of static before, and I would get certain things, but I wouldn't really know where it was coming from. And that now that I know what I'm doing more, I can specifically say, hey, I would like to hear messages from this guide, from this specific channel. Like, if I'm going to interact with, like, if I need like a warrior or a rebel or something like that, I might say, hey, I'm going into this situation and I need this energy, and I might, do a ritual or something like that to help me focus in on the frequency that I'm hoping to get information from. And so I hope that like drew it back to guides. Yeah, I hope that made sense to Renee or anybody else. Let's see. And look at I think Maria is next.
I think I'm gonna pass
is
it to yeah, I'm gonna
Oh.
pass it to Taryn or Stephanie. Sorry, Stephanie and then Taryn, and then I'll go after.
Yeah, Stephanie's next.
Stephanie.
All right. I agree with so much of what you both just said. And I think that I too have done it for years without realizing that that's what was happening. And I found a lot of relief in becoming okay with not having the answers on where the information is coming from exactly, like not needing to label it. It's something that I feel that is coming from outside of me. But just accepting it as it is has really helped me to be able to lean more into it. I don't need to define it as a particular person or being or place or anything like that. What I find when I'm doing it is that um, when I'm speaking and it's happening, I don't remember a lot of it, which is kind of disappointing. It comes through sort of in a staccato type memory of bits and fragments for me. But what I discovered probably just a few months ago, I was reading through my old journals and I was like, who wrote this? Right? Like, what? I've never seen this before. Like, I've never seen this. This doesn't even sound like me. I mean, it's great stuff, but like, I definitely had no part in any of that. And so I found that for writing for me was a way that um now I can go back and actually receive more of the information than when it's happening in like a speaking setting, because I lose so much of it. And I also feel that usually if I'm speaking to somebody and that's happening, might not be entirely meant for me anyways. So that I don't remember it, and then I don't. But that's the awareness of it has helped me to, I think, like Ezra said, like has helped me to be able to lean into it more, and just accepting that it is what it is. I don't know if it's, you know, someone from an interdimensional planet. I don't know if it's, another spirit. I don't know if it's my guides. It becomes unimportant to me at this point. um, because the end result is the same no matter where it comes from for me. So, yeah, I think, what do we say was next, Maria? Was it Taryn?
Yeah, I was just going to share my experience that I had as a way of kind of explaining it, I guess. How I operate, at least. I, as I said before, like I pace and stuff. And on this one particular day, like just nothing was going right. I couldn't meditate. Just, I was just getting really frustrated. Didn't feel like I was getting anywhere with any of the shadow work or any of that stuff. And one of my frustrations was trying to find some music to play. 'Cause I'm really heavy into that. And so about that, I'm speaking out loud and I'm voicing my frustrations. And I said, I just want some music to take on my journey. What's the big deal? And with that, I had music playing in the background. Well, the song came up, and it's this artist named Saint Finnegan. And of course, I'm always researching everything. So I'm looking into his background, and I believe he's from Brazil, but he actually runs an energy hospital. And on his profile on, I think it's Spotify, where I saw it, or it might be YouTube, he literally says those words, that he creates this music for people to take with them on their journey. So like, okay, message received. So I start playing him, and I sit down on the couch, and I said, okay, sorry, I skipped a part. So after I get his music going, I'm trying to, I'm frustrated over not being able to meditate. And so again, and I refer to these messages as my guides or my ancestors when I get this type of messages. So again, I get an answer. It's like I hear it like in my head, sort of. It's not like an audible, but and the message is that I did this as a child when I had no clue what I was doing. So, like, I don't need to go through that big meditation thing that I'm trying to copy that someone else does to do that. That's not to say that I can't learn to meditate and that wouldn't help my practice, but that's not what I need to be focusing on. Like, it's not so much that I have to do it that way, but just open myself up to it. And so with that, I sit down and his music is playing, and I just like gonna get into it, getting into the sound and the music, and the first song plays, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. So the next song comes, and it's a totally different like beat and everything. It's more energetic and all of that. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. So then I tell myself, no, this is happening for a reason. So I just need to get into it. The song is playing next, for a purpose. So I literally at that point I feel like, not like someone hitting me, but it was like pressure on my chest, like someone just gently putting their hand over my heart and kind of like pushing me back to relax. And I heard a voice say, the problem isn't that we don't believe, it's that we don't trust. And with that, my dad stepped forward. It's the only way I know how to explain it. It's not like he came out of the dark or anything like that, but that's just how I get to explain it. But he stepped forward and he said, tell Justin, which is my son, it's not that he doesn't believe. I know that he believes. He just doesn't trust. Tell him if he will trust, I will be there to guide him. And so my dad and son had a really special connection. And he passed away a while ago. But anyways, so to me that was more channeling, that part where my dad came forward, because it was a specific person giving a message. So that's how I define it, versus where like I just hear something or I get a message through a song or lyrics. And so as soon as sorry, I'm getting after my dad said that, sorry, I'm losing my just a second. Sorry. I realized that like it was a specific message to myself, to my son, but it's really kind of a universal message, because so many of us have a knowing, or we believe, like we our whole lives we just felt like, you know, there really were unicorns, or we felt, you know, we believed in some kind of magic, as they call it, you know, or we had a feeling or experience that we just know to our bones to be true, but you know, our parents tell us we're crazy, it's just our imagination or whatever. And so I feel that like in what's going on now in our kind of collective purpose is that we have these beliefs. Now we just need to trust the process, so to speak, or trust in what we already know to be true, if that makes sense. So that's my story.
Yes, Taryn, totally. About like the trusting, when like we're talking about these things of this nature, like, you know, it's like we can only believe what, you know, what we're experiencing. It's like so much of that is like in that belief, you know, and like you said, if I think kind of guides are funny sometimes, it's like, you know, kind of maybe getting this message over and over and you're not believing it, and they're like, fine, we'll show you another way. And that, like, you know, you go in the car and you turn on the song and it's like the song, or you turn on the TV and like you get pinged with the commercial, or somebody says something, or like, you know, a feather or the animal, like they're like, hello, like which way would you like the message? So I think that that is important, and also like engaging with it, like for someone that wants to. I don't believe, I believe that some things how can I say this? So with like channeling and things of that nature, I do also believe that it's a skill like that you can develop, and finding that way which works for you. And like, you know, you can try different ways. And and maybe skill's not the right word, but you kind of catch my vibe, you know, like it kind of like, you know, like a muscle memory type of thing, where you can kind of build a relationship maybe with it. Um, and the like for me, the more that I engaged with it, the more I would experience it. Not because I don't think I'm channeling or experiencing messages from guides more than anyone else. I was just listening differently, and I was just like paying attention a little bit differently, and kind of practicing using those parts of myself. And then it would happen like quicker. And then doing like kind of doing it for other people, you know, commonly mediumship, you know, kind of out there, what's out there. Um, it's then there's like that consent, you know, piece of it. And so it's like when channeling, or, you know, a lot of times for myself, certainly there are lots of times where I'm out in the world or even in the spaces that we all share together that I might get pinged with information, and, maybe ask, for consent to like feel into it more. But a lot of times I'll just say in like my mind's eye to whatever, like, oh, I'm sorry, like I can't do it in this space, or like I don't have consent to, like look into that further. Like, but I used to like, kind of doing it for other people. Um, and it was interesting, like in reading for other people, I would get like, I would still hear, but I would also get like more imagery in my mind. And sometimes I would get songs. Like the first dead person I ever talked to, his name was Winston. And it was just that song. I don't know if I'm 43. So like there used to be a hand thing, you do with your friend, and it was like, Winston tastes good just like a cigarette should. And I was like, that's like the song that I heard. So like when I was doing it for other people, my experiences were like a little bit different from when I'm doing it for myself. But now that I think about it, it's probably like, I think I was gonna say just kind of maybe get used to, or like in a comfort zone. So it's like having this conversation makes me want to maybe stretch my wings a little bit more with that. The other thing I wanted to say about channeling, is because I have anxiety of the OCD nature. That's interesting, you know. And so I just kind of wanted to kind of mention that too, like in case other people like were experiencing that, like, so when I'm channeling and what like receiving maybe messages for myself or kind of guidance, I will feel it from a grounded place. Um, and then when I'm kind of feeling that heightened nervous system, that experience, more of anxiety, that's when I shift into more like of a support, like that my system needs support. And because I can identify when it's coming from a place of anxiety, not that I might not be, I just know that. And so because I just think there were some times where I might used to get like nervous, about my thoughts that are happening when I'm having anxiety. So when I talked about like kind of feeling signatures, that was like important for me to make a distinction that when I'm in a place of like anxiety and I am having thoughts, because I also channel a shitload. Like when I'm in that space of anxiety, I go into more supporting my system, and I'm not, I'm not focused on like messages or channeling at that time. Because when I am receiving information, for me, with my system, I have an agreement that those messages come from like a grounded space, so I can make sure they're not fear-based, because that's important to me. Not that maybe I wouldn't get like messages of like, pay attention to something or things like that, but channeling for me, getting like messages, is not fear-based. And I just mentioned that again too, because if someone's like new to this, or like wanting to explore that, it was just kind of a process that I had to work through, for myself, about working through that. And that can be like a whole class, a whole discussion, but I just felt it was important to mention. And a lot of people, sometimes, especially on the public pages, will say my guides, they say, it breaks my heart. They'll say like, my guides have left me, or I can't hear my guides, like, where are they? And sometimes I just wonder if that's because the expectation is they're expecting it to look, feel, sound this way. And, you know, I wish, kind of wanting to like, can't like, because sometimes there's so many people, and we can kind of connect here and there, but it's hard, right? Because like, like when someone asks that type of a question or makes that kind of a comment, it's like so much deeper than just like a one sentence or one word answer could, they deserve kind of more. So hoping they find their way here. But maybe they're expecting for it to like look, sound, feel, sense it one specific way. Or I've been some of the TikToks and some of the things I've been seeing too is like the part about where we do have free will and that, consent is important. And if you're looking for a sign or for guidance, ask and then see how it shows up. I think sometimes we maybe forget, and I even forget sometimes, like, like I'm what is going on? I need more information. And I'm like, well, you should ask, and then kind of see what happens from there. So anyway, thank you for letting me share all that information. Let me go to the list. Ezra.
I think my hand was just still up. Go to the next person.
Okie dokie. Let's see. Participants. And Renee.
Oh yeah, I just love hearing what everyone says, and it's all so helpful because I feel like so much of it is little puzzle pieces they have to put together. Because like in my local group last week, there's two people that just super duper engage with people like in the dream space. And they, engage with people who've passed on a lot. And I've had some dreams like that. I call them visitations because they're very different than a dream. So one of the things that's always troubled me is I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, what? I mean, like, what am I supposed to do with this information? And one of the people in my group, something they said that was really helpful to me, he's like, I think they just want to be heard sometimes. I think they just want you to hear what they have to say, and you don't have to engage them, or you don't have to try to figure it out. And then the other reason I was asking is because, like, I mean, I think I've talked before about like the chatter, like I just have like just weird streams of conversation going through my head all the time that feels like it's on a different frequency, and I might tune that frequency out most of the time. But the last few days I've been getting words. Like the other day I just got this word, kalumi, and I'm like, I don't know what that word means, you know? And I heard it. And so then I was like, well, I don't know what that word means. And then the first time this has happened to me, it was like, did you guys see that movie with Kevin Bacon where he gets hypnotized and he's like, when he's getting hypnotized, he's like looking at a movie theater screen in an all black movie theater, and a word will just pop up on the screen. That's kind of what happened to me. Like this word kalumi like popped up on a screen, and but then I heard someone say it's important that it's spelled this way. There's like an H in the word. And so then I like looked it up on Google Translate, and it means little bud, which I think could definitely be a nickname for like a little grandson or granddaughter. That was like the impression that I got. And the language that it was in is called like Xhosa. It's some South African language. So I thought that was really interesting. And then like 2 mornings ago, I had this phrase pop in my head that's so goofy and embarrassing. Like I'm embarrassed for whoever, like, anyway, I was just like, that is so goofy. Like, why on earth would that be so just like etched into my like vision, basically? And I looked it up. Should I just tell you guys? It's so goofy. Like, it's not ever something I would ever think, or like, it was the words destiny, love, right? And I also thought that's got to be like a name. So I looked it up, and it's the name of many an exotic dancer. but also a woman that like plays the ukulele and but it was really weird. I'm like, who would call themselves Destiny Love like on purpose? But I definitely like lately I've been Googling things, but then again, so I'm like, okay, here's this person. She seems like we would, be friendly with one another, but but so like again, I'm back to like, well, why that? Like why did that? And it's not just like I thought it. It's like it's like front and center, like it just comes up and like demands to be acknowledged kind of, So now I'm acknowledging it, I looked it up. That's as far as it went. But so I'm trying to keep, like I said, stuff Maria says. So here's the other thing. People will say stuff and it like I have to roll it around in my brain for a couple of days a lot of times. And like it'll just kind of sort itself out and the puzzle pieces will kind of come together. So like I said, like a week or so ago, um, this fellow I know, like you said, you know, um, they just want to be heard a lot of times. They just want you to hear them say something. So, and then, I incorporated that and I'm like, okay, I guess ultimately I am channeling, like, I don't know what, I don't know what, I don't know what it means other than, and it has always happened too, but, so yes, I so appreciate what everyone is saying, like, and it's just, um, and lots of things people say like click, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I totally get that, but, yeah, it's just interesting because I mean, I feel like I'm such a like weird baby about everything, Like I said, like I'll tune it out most of the time because I'm just like, I don't know what to do with this. But um and also because I spent so much of my life like tuning it out that like now that I'm tuning into it, it's a really super different experience. And also like I would prefer it if people don't um try to like interact with me or give me information when I'm in the bathroom. Like that seems like a place that no one should bother you ever. You know what I mean? Like that's a place I want to be left alone. But also, so I appreciate what everyone's saying and I'd love to hear more, but that's kind of what I wanted to interject. Because I feel like my like interactions are constantly changing. Like this visual thing is very new. And like words in foreign languages have been popping up, and most of the time I ignore it, but I could not ignore this word kalumi, and it means little bud. And I could just see someone calling their little sweet little grandson or granddaughter like a little bud. It's just such a it's a cute little word, or their cat, or something. Like it definitely feels like a name, but um okay, that's my ramble, you guys.
I think
Go
I'm
for it,
next.
Taryn.
Okay. Well, I wanted to add something to my experience. I don't know why I keep like leaving this part when I think of it, but well, it's because I get emotional when I start talking about my dad, and then like I did before, I lost my train of thought. But I think this is kind of is important into that message. When I like went out or lost awareness of my surroundings, there was during the second song. And then when I became aware again, it was actually playing a third song. So it seemed to happen just like instantly, but obviously I was out of it, for lack of a better way of saying it, for at least a full minute or two. But when I became aware, the third song that was playing, it was on this one particular line in the verse that says, can the universe really do better than my dreams? And she said, let go, see. And that let go and see was just like so profound. And I think that's where like the trust comes in. Like we believe certain things, even if we doubt them or we're unsure, or we don't have all the information on it. We believe it. And so now we just need to let go of trying to control it, or, however you want to say it. Y'all say things so much better than I can. I really struggle to get things out the way that I mean them in my head. But so yeah, I think at least that part is really personal to me, in that I have, major trust issues, and I need to just let go and trust and see if the universe can do better than me. I haven't really done that great so far, so I'm thinking they probably can. But that's all I want to say on that one.
Go for it, Stephanie.
Renee, I really resonated with what you said about getting the flashes of weird names and words, because it's happened to me. One particular one that I'm thinking about was I was doing a lot of work a couple of years ago on, really connecting with my guide team and, spending time with them and getting to know them. And I thought, I asked for a name because I thought that would help me be able to relate a little bit. And um, I instantly got the name Luca, but I was told the spelling was important. It was Lewka, which I was like, well, that's super weird way to spell it. But what did I do? I Googled it just like you have. And there was one person that came up with the spelling like that who lived in Bermuda, who had the same last name as my maiden name, which was Pearman, which isn't a super common um, name. And I took that as validation, that that what I had seen was correct, if you will. And I just thought that was interesting, because when you were describing your experiences, I really related, because I had exactly the same thing happen, and I found my validation by Googling. So um, and the other thing, Taryn, you made me think about I love the trust piece that you've mentioned today about, that we need to trust what is happening, is um, made me think of, it's in the book The Psychic Witch. There's the exercise, and I think I brought it up a few weeks ago. I know I did. Um, where you take a day and you just pretend that you're the most powerful seer in all the land, and that every message you get is true or valid, and then you follow it in that way to try and like get a little more used to trusting yourself. And I find that by making it a game for myself, it allows me to actually trust. And then when these things start really lining up and coming together, I'm always like, whoa, it still surprises me, every time. Even it doesn't get old. It really doesn't get old. But I did find, you know, as with most things in my life, laundry, whatever, making it a game or something magical really does help me connect with that piece, because my social conditioning is sometimes so hard to get past. So that is something that I have found was helpful for me in that respect. I think, Petra, I think you're up next.
I just wanted to check in with the mods because I just was like wanted to be mindful of the time before I continue.
Yeah, thank you. You're totally good. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to speak to, there was like so much that was shared, and I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I think it's so interesting to like find out how everybody channels and how it's like a little bit different, like it's slightly like, and I wonder if sometimes that's has to do with like, I don't know if it's like personalities or just like, just even like style, like where we all like dress a little bit differently, or we like different colors. And so it's like things kind of like there are themes across, it seems, but like that there are just different ways of doing things. For me, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like it's always on, and I actually have to just like put a little like buffer to be like, okay, regular lifetime. And so it's like it's one of those things where it's like, if I'm not really being present in my body, it will just start happening. And then I'm like, oh, okay. Like, which for me is something that I have to be really mindful of when I'm talking to friends and stuff like that, because I feel like channeling for others is something that for my personal ethics requires consent. And so it's always something where I'm like, whoa, I think I tapped into, like, it will just start happening and I'll fall into it. And I'm like, do you want this actually? Like, before I keep going. And obviously lots of witchy friends and stuff like that would be like, yeah, you just have carte blanche, like consent to like whatever, whenever. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me. Like, I need to know each time, sorry. But like, with that vein of the consent piece, is that I wanted to say that like you're allowed, and I also encourage you to have boundaries with your guides and with anything that you're channeling. Like when you were talking about like the messages in the bathroom, Renee, I was like, so valid. And I think that like before I knew that I could say like, here are my business hours, I just like was like bombarded and I was like, what the frick? But I really like, especially when I came off those medications and everything was like a live wire, I really had to be like, okay, like I'm not available for like messages in my dreams. I'm like healing from a lot of dysregulation and trauma, and I need to sleep. I like need to rest. Like, unless that's like that is the only way you can communicate with me, like, and it was one of those things too, where it was like, there's a certain element of like self-trust that's built when we're like, hey, I'm not available all hours all the time, no matter what, to anything and everything. Like, and it's also a great place to practice boundaries, because spirit is probably the most respectful out of like, human beings will try to argue your boundaries with you, but spirit's like, all right, that's a boundary. Like, it's not, I've never gotten any like pushback or whatever. They're just like, all right, like now I know. And I think that lots of times when we get bombarded, it's because we don't know that we're allowed to say no, which like in today's society is like so fucking valid and makes so much sense. But I just wanted to say that piece of like, if you're getting messages when you don't want them, or like, Maria was talking about like kind of messages that are more distressing, and that that's not what you don't have the capacity, or you don't want to be received, like you're allowed to be like, not this. Like when I was very dysregulated, was getting like death premonitions for people. And it was terrifying. And so I had to sit down and be like, unless I can stop it, or there's something I need to say to this person before they pass, I don't want to know. Like, unless there's something for me to do about this, I don't need to know. It's none of my, like, it actually is really like affecting my mental health really poorly. And then it just stopped, which was really helpful. And I also think that is a piece of this that we don't always talk about, is like, now when I get premonitions about things, now that my nervous system has processed a lot of trauma, the tone is different. And I think that maybe there's something about like, the energetic state that we're in, that we might be a tuning fork for certain types of messages, and in those states being like, hey, I'm actually not in a good place to be receiving these types of messages, because it's actually going to make this worse for me, so I need to say no. And knowing that like that no is not a like no never, like you're always allowed to readjust and be like, okay, now I feel like I actually am curious about this. Because I think sometimes we get afraid to close doors because we're afraid that we'll never be able to open them again. And I just it feels really important to be like, that's not true. Like, you can always go back to things. There's no finality with stuff. That's, and it makes sense that as physical beings that the finality feels very real, but in terms of spiritual sense, things are much more fluid and much more flexible. So I just wanted to say that, because I'm like, you always, like, you're the captain of your ship, so to speak, of your life, and you're allowed to be like, not this, yes this, maybe this later, but not right now, like that. And honestly, like, practicing boundaries with spirit was like the thing that helped me have more courage, and feel less like shaky about doing that with human beings. Because I was like, oh, okay, like that wasn't actually super hard. Like maybe I can do this with other people too. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much, Petra. What a great reminder that we're allowed to have boundaries. I think everyone could use that reminder. It's always a good one. So that is our Sass. Jen Marie had to hop off to go to the workshop, which will be in about an hour. So get your last minute tickets if that's what you're feeling. And yeah, what an amazing Sass. Thank you so much, everybody, for your weigh-ins. And I love the way the conversation just spun like wool. Like it just ran with it. It was really cool. So everybody have a good Sunday. Make sure you take a minute to transition and drink some water. Bye.